We've all been trained to hustle for our sense of belonging, right? To prove that we deserve to stay or to shrink or perform or to adapt or to over deliver just so that we can secure a seat at the table. And today we don't even call it hustling anymore. We call this being grateful or being self-aware or being a good fit. But what if belonging was never meant to be earned? What if our sense of belonging was actually just meant to be remembered? Here at Bintegers, we believe that intimacy begins where performance ends. And integrity is what really helps us to live true to ourselves. And intimacy helps us to remember that we were never meant to audition for our acceptance. We already belong, like right here, right now. But let's get honest about this, shall we? Most of us learned that connection was conditional. We grew up in rooms where love came with fine print. Be polite and then we'll listen, right? Be quiet and then we'll keep you around. Or be impressive and then maybe we'll stay. So we learned early that acceptance had this currency and that we could actually lose it. So we got good at calculating our presence. We learned how to read a room, how to anticipate other people's moods, how to stay small just enough to be tolerable. And then when they called that humility, we believed them. But humility is not the same thing as hiding. And belonging that requires suppression is not belonging. That's survival. See, belonging is not something you earn by proving your worthiness. It's something that becomes possible when you stop negotiating it. Because the second that you try to earn belonging, well, you've already lost yourself to someone else's comfort. And that is not connection. That's performance in disguise. See, we've mistaken proximity for belonging. But proximity without authenticity is just closeness without connection. It's why you can maybe sit at a dinner table that's full of people and simultaneously still feel invisible, because belonging does not come from being around others. It actually comes from being with yourself. And integrity is what helps us stay rooted in that truth. It's like this inner compass, if you will, that whispers, you don't need to trade yourself just to be seen. And intimacy, like the real kind of intimacy, it reminds you that connection isn't about agreement. It's about honesty. Somewhere along the way, I think belonging got tied to worth. And the message was quite subtle, but clear. It said, if you fit, you're valuable. If you don't, then you're disposable. And so we built our lives around being palpable. We soften our edges. We learn how to smile through discomfort and how to agree even when we were uneasy. How to belong by assimilation instead of by authenticity. But belonging that's built on imitation will always cost you your sense of belonging to yourself. See, you can't be at home in a space where you have to exile parts of who you truly are. There's a reason, I think, that most people confuse belonging with approval. They sound similar, but they feel completely different. Approval says, we like what you do, whereas belonging says, we're so glad that you just exist. Approval is conditional. It shifts with performance or your mood or context, whereas belonging is unconditional. It remains even when everything else changes. And the problem is that many of us have spent our entire lives chasing after approval because it was the only thing that was offered in the name of love. But let's maybe just call this what it is. We've been relationally domesticated. We've been taught to equate peace with compliance, taught that love meant avoiding conflict, taught that being too much could make us unlovable. And so we learned to rotate ourselves into these small acceptable doses that we dose out. And now we just start to reclaim our wholeness. And when we do this, people call this rebellion. But it's not rebellion. This is like a reunion. It's you returning to yourself. True belonging doesn't begin when people finally accept you. It actually begins when you stop abandoning yourself to keep these other people in your life. And that's the spiritual core of integrity. It's self-loyalty in motion. It's refusing to betray your truth just for inclusion. Because any connection that demands disconnection from yourself is not love. That's dependency. And here's the paradox. We think that belonging requires similarity, but the deepest belonging grows in difference. When we're seen in our full individuality, and when in that zone we're still embraced. And that's why intimacy is so sacred. It's not sameness, it's safety in diversity. It's a space where you can say, this is who I am, and then not have to follow that with an apology. But let's be clear, belonging is not passive. It's not waiting for others to make space for you. No, belonging, it's really about choosing to take up space where your truth needs to breathe. And when integrity leads that, it's in this space that you stop begging for inclusion and now start creating these environments that feel safe to your soul. When intimacy grows, you stop chasing connection and start cultivating true connection. Because belonging isn't found, belonging is what we practice. And you don't have to belong because you performed correctly. You actually belong because you simply exist. That's the foundation. That's the thing that they never taught us in these systems that were built on merit and on conformity. They told us that we had to earn love, that we had to earn our rest, we had to earn respect or earn inclusion. But love that has to be earned is not love. That's what we call leverage. And you can't rest in a relationship where you're constantly renegotiating your right to actually exist and be there, taking up space. So what does it look like to live like we belong? It means that we stop over-explaining our boundaries. It means that we stop apologizing for our presence and that we're taking up space. It means that we stop mistaking tolerance for connection. And now that and it means that we begin to understand that our belonging is not up for debate. This is our birthright. We were born connected, and life taught us separation along the way. But integrity and intimacy teach us how to return again. So we tend to believe that belonging comes after we've proved ourselves, after we've healed, after we've become easier to love, right? But healing does not make you more deserving of connection. Healing just makes you more capable of recognizing when real connection is at play. You can't work your way into love. You can only open your way into it. And belonging is never a reward for performance. It's actually the byproduct of you choosing to be present intentionally. See, there will be rooms that will not be able to hold your fullness. People who prefer perhaps your muted version of yourself. Communities that only celebrate what's convenient about you. And I mean, that's okay. Your job is not to fit into every environment. Your job is to discern which environments are safe and worthy of you. And that's the difference. The difference between desperation and the difference between you finding your dignity. Desperation says something like, please let me in at whatever cost. Whereas dignity says, I'm going to build what doesn't yet exist. And when you stop trying to earn belonging, it's then that you realize how many places you stayed only because you were performing in the first place. And that realization can be painful because performance, it gets praise. People love the versions of us that make their world easier. But when we start to live honestly, some will call it this distance on our part, right? Others will call it arrogance. And the truth is, this is what freedom really is. You're no longer trying to convince anyone that your existence is justified. Belonging without earning, it doesn't mean that everyone will accept you in that space. It means that you've just chosen to stop abandoning yourself when they don't. It means that you'll learn to stay loyal to your truth, even when it costs you your comfort. Because comfort without integrity is just a prettier form of captivity. Listen, in tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about how our softness is not a liability. We're going to explore these parts of us that once felt like weakness, like our gentleness, our tenderness, our empathy, our vulnerability, and we'll see how they're actually our greatest sources of strength and connection. Because wholeness without softness is not real wholeness. It's just like armor, right? But for now, let me remind you this. The moment that you stop negotiating your place is when everything shifts. It's when you'll likely feel your body relaxing and your voice becoming steadier, and your energy won't be leaking into these spaces that were never meant to hold it. It's now that you start to realize and recognize that your peace doesn't come from being liked externally. It came from being aligned internally. And that's when intimacy becomes real. Because connection that's built on pretending is just proximity with a mask on. Whereas connection that's built on presence is the kind that actually breathes. Maybe this is what a real homecoming could look like. Not people cheering you on while you're walking into the room, but your own soul whispering something like, you can breathe here. You can rest here. That's belonging. That's the quiet miracle of integrity and intimacy in motion. You don't have to prove your worth to stay here. You just have to stop leaving yourself to be accepted externally. My dear listener, you got this. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in tomorrow's episode.